Folks, welcome to the Generational Gap. I'm Robert, your resident Gen Xer,
Hey, you did it right this time.
reactionary extraordinaire, and right over there, that guy, John. He's
This
our
one,
resident millennial
that would be me.
and waste of space,
That's right.
neck beard
Neckbeard
extraordinaire,
extraordinaire. Yeah, see, I was going for the same thing.
the uniposer.
That's right. I don't have the hoodie on though. I
I
need
know you
to.
haven't done the uniposer in a while. We need the
It's
uniposer
not been
back.
cold enough. This is Florida, man. It's not been cold enough.
But John, how you doing tonight?
I'm doing all right. How are you doing tonight, Robert? Nice.
Doing all right, John. You shouldn't talk to people while they're drinking and eating. It makes it difficult for them to respond quickly, and thus leads to dead air.
It's true. It did.
Should take these things to heart. So we're just FYI, we're still waiting. He has not started yet.
Has it not?
John, do you want to
It
let?
has started.
Do we
God
have it?
damn it!
It hasn't started on mine.
It started on mine, so I can say it.
No, not ours. His.
Oh, oh yeah, someone else's.
How many people do we have in chat, John? Do your job.
Fucking none.
None. We have
Just us.
nobody in chat right now.
Yeah. We're
Wow.
so lonely.
I know, right?
So
We should sing
lonely.
Asian sad songs. that a
Got
thing?
nobody to call my own. Ooh.
Sing it, John.
Yeah.
Sing it.
I did.
So, John, just so in case we have to jump in and do it real quick. Why don't you update folks on what we're doing for the moment? Even though there's nobody here, we can kind of update people just in case. Well, if we don't have any chatters, will it work?
No, I don't think it'll work.
It
But
won't really help without a viewing audience, right?
yeah, we kind of need an audience because we plan on doing a raid here in a few minutes on our good friend Stephen Ignoramus, who had the audacity, nay, the balls, to do a stream at the same time we're doing a stream. So, we're gonna go and raid his stream. We're gonna stream snipe him, raid him, and I'm not sure exactly what we're gonna say yet.
Here
Haven't
it comes.
decided.
Proven, Johnny.
Oh, is he coming on? Well, we could wait a few
Yes.
minutes more. He's gonna be on for a little while.
He's going to be here for a bit.
Yeah.
Well, we'll see if we get a few folks in chat. Where's our peeps at? Where's our peeps? Did you put out all the appropriate
yeah.
links, John? Did you let
Yeah,
the
I
world
did.
know that we're
I
here
did.
and we're ready to talk?
I
Hey,
did my job. The only thing I didn't do was send Midget B a text, which I usually do, but he's
Well,
usually here anyway.
Yeah. You know, he's usually kind of
So
diligent.
I'll go ahead and send him a little texty text. So why don't you go ahead and blather on as you want to do?
So we've got a few things to talk about tonight, John. The most obvious thing. I'm hearing myself. Why am I hearing
Oh yeah,
myself?
sorry, that's
Why are
my
you
fault.
doing that to me, John?
Because I had to get the link.
So
We're a professional podcast.
as I was saying before, I was so Johnly interrupted.
You were.
We've got a few things to talk about tonight. Of course, one of the biggest things happened this week, in my opinion, was the Cohen testimony before the Senate Oversight Committee, which I thought was. I sat and listened to that for 2 to 3 hours, and it was mind numbing, but it was somewhat enlightening, potentially. Right? We'll talk about that.
Yeah.
And we're going to talk a little bit about Mr. Trump, which is going to tie into Mr. Cohen. And not only that, but Mr. Trump went where this week? Where did he go? He went somewhere.
Went to Vietnam.
Vietnam.
to
He
go
was
meet
checking on
with-
his sweatshops?
No, he was actually going to meet with Supreme Dear Leader Kim Jong-un himself. Yes.
Really?
Yeah.
So there was a summit or something, right?
It was something like that, yeah.
Yeah, I wonder how
Some kind
that
of
turned
summit.
out. We'll have to look
A
into that
meeting,
and see
yeah.
how that turned out. A
a
meeting
meeting-
of great minds?
A meeting of the guts, I was going to say.
Of the guts.
Yeah.
Why the guts?
They're both pretty large
Well,
and in charge.
They do both have a little bit of a pear shape going on, don't they? They're like, well, maybe I would say Trump. If Trump put on a purple suit, he would be eggplant. But anyway,
Like that eggplant emoji bullshit.
right. Then we're also going to talk a little bit about something Joe Rogan slash Alex Jones. I'm afraid to say the name.
Alex Jones.
I'm afraid to say the
Tell,
name. I
don't
hear
tell
it's
you.
not a good thing to throw that name
Yeah.
around on your show anymore.
Yeah, nobody.
Maybe that's why we don't have any listeners. I plugged the name into the title of the show. Maybe that was a
Oh
bad
yeah.
move.
So we've already been shadow banned.
Shadow banned. Is that would that happen? Do they do that?
Shadow banning. Do you know what shadow banning is? Because I know you're a normie.
It's where I'm going to hazard a guess and say where the site makes it appear that you're having difficulties putting your media on.
Close. It's where like you can, especially a Twitter thing where you can put out a tweet and no one will see it though. But like you're not banned off of the site.
But for all
It's
intents and
just it,
purposes, you put the tweet out.
you put the tweet out and no one gets to see it.
Right.
It
So
doesn't go out to anyone else.
so it's possible that our show's not even happening right now.
I wish we were that popular.
Right. Just
That would be awesome.
well,
I
having
long for
Alex.
the oppression
We'll
of
see.
having a popular show.
It would be nice. So our goal is deep platforming now. Good.
Yes, we want to
Well,
get
we
deplatformed.
need
That
to
is
be
the goal of this show.
platformed and then be deplatformed.
Right. Exactly.
Um,
And then when we get platformed and then deplatformed, we'll be ultra platformed.
Oof, God,
We can
that
be
sounds
martyrs.
that sounds exciting. Your
Oh, see,
mom's
Midget B
popular.
says my mom's popular. I assume my mom.
Yeah, he's probably talking about yours, seeing as how mine's dead.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, thanks, Midget B. Dickhead. God.
salt in the wound much.
Right?
Um,
Lemon juice as well.
So we'll talk a little bit about the Rogan Jones situation, and then there was something else. There was something else I wanted to talk about. I just want to start the show off talking a little bit about something that's happening out west. And outside of that, there's nothing. Well, there's some legislation that got put forward that I'm kind of excited about, John.
Yeah.
Cory Booker put it forward, and we talked about this a couple of weeks ago on the show, that, or maybe longer, where they were kind of loading the shotgun with things that they wanted to put forward in the House, and one of them was the legalization of marijuana. Well, it appears that Cory Booker has gone ahead and put the legislation forward, and at the same time, other Democratic hopefuls for the 2020 election have jumped on the train, and there's the discussion now is whether or not these folks are going to make this part of their platform for 2020 or moving into 2020. But basically, it is the legalization of marijuana. Cory Booker's on board. Tabby, I've got the play button going there.
Tabby
Gibbard,
Gibbard or
Tulsi
some
Gabbard.
shit like that.
Tulsi Gabbard.
Tulsi Gabbard. Yeah, you fucked
gonna
me up.
I'm going to chop
God
her
damn
name
it.
up. But
Yeah, Tulsi Gabbard.
Gillibrand,
Yes.
Sanders, Warren,
Gabbard Sanders 2020.
and Kamala Harris is even on board. She even made reference to having smoked weed in college and that kind of
And then
stuff.
putting shitloads of people behind bars as a prosecutor.
It was kind of funny. She had
Thanks.
some really deep thoughts of it on it, where she said. She claimed,
whatever.
I think it gives a lot of people joy, and we need more joy in the world. Because she used to listen to Snoop Dogg and Tupac Shakur.
Who weren't out until several years after she was in college.
Right.
Fucking liar. Lying
But,
ass piece of shit. God
well-
damn it. What's funny is I'm actually listening to Snoop Dogg right this second.
But they are, there's some question as to whether or not, it can get through the Senate, being that, the Republican majority leader, getting it past him might be kind of a challenge. What's his McNugget? I just looked him up earlier, and now I can't remember his damn name. But anyway,
Yeah.
the Senate Majority Leader for the Republicans, it's not expected that it's going to get by him necessarily because he's kind of outspoken about it. Not Jeff Sessions outspoken, just kind of outspoken enough that he doesn't want
Sure.
it legalized. I mean, he's downplayed legalization before, so it's kind of cool. The bill is there, introduced, which means now we begin the process. And it's possible. It's possible, John. I mean, we're getting more and more people across the country that are on board with this. Yeah, I don't know.
Hmm.
But now we've got the entire most of the Democratic presidential field backing this. And that means almost nothing, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I don't know. I think a lot of Republicans will go for it as well, at least enough to sway the vote.
Let me ask you this. Do you
What?
think do you think it's possible that this issue could be large enough to make the difference in the election if Democrats are putting the agenda forward?
I think it'll help them out a lot. Yeah,
Would it draw more voters into the voting pool that wouldn't normally vote?
possibly.
Would the majority of Americans who, by polling, show that they are more inclined to the legalization of
Yo, what's
marijuana
up,
by
Seawall?
upwards to over 60%, is that is that going to make the voting? This is the kind of thing I think could make voting crazy, actually, in 2020. We could see
Yeah,
more,
no, it
more
could help
people
them out a
vote.
lot.
We could possibly see more people vote in 2020 than have ever voted before.
Like, actually, it would be a really good move on Trump's part if he were to come out like as it was going through the Senate. It would be a good idea for him to come out in support of the bill in order to, kind of stop people from voting for Democrats on that issue alone.
Well, right, and I understand what you're saying, Seawall. Much like John, the single issue votes are quite
Hmm.
rare. However,
They do
um,
exist, and I mean they can
I
sway.
I am seeing this as I would see this as a strong part of the foundation for the Democratic push to win the election in 2020. I can see this as a strong part of the foundation because there are going to be other talking points, right? I mean, Trump in and of himself is going to be the biggest arguing point the Democrats go with. Just the crazy bullshit that he's done. And that's indicative of, as we get ready to talk about Cohen,
Yeah,
indicative of one side or the other. They're going to harp on a point, and that point is going to be the character of Donald Trump as president more than anything else. But
well,
I
yeah. There's
think
nothing else that can get him on.
Right, but I think this is a
I
good
mean,
piece of prop to hold things up. It's a really good foundation to work from to secure a lot more voters who might
hmm
actually vote on these other issues like Trump, like foreign policy, like taxes, etc., that they normally would just ignore voting because legalization is on the table. I don't know. It's one of those things that'll bring voters, I think. And with house crazy left wing socialists, most of these Dems are. I see it stemming the bleeding a bit, but I doubt it will secure victory. Understandable, Seawall. I know it's going to be a tough uphill battle, but it just depends on what can happen in the next 2 years as well. All
yeah.
right, John. I'm just going to put this out there. I mean, we've got Seawall, we've got Midget B. I don't know who
Yeah,
else is in chat right
we've
now.
got 4 people total
If we're going to
watching.
do this, let's.
Let's do it now. Let's go back over it though. So, friend of the show, Stephen Ignoramus, had the balls to do a stream at the same time we are. So what we're planning on doing is stream sniping and raiding his chat. Now, see, he's a much smaller. He's kind of a smaller channel than us, not much smaller, but smaller. He probably doesn't have a lot of people watching. So we're going to spend a few minutes and go raid his chat. If anyone in the chat has any kind of suggestions for things that we should say, or what
Post
kind of
the
thing we should push,
link in to
yeah,
his
I'll post the
channel in the
link.
chat.
Let's do that.
And look at Tim Pool's analysis. Half of the Dems want to be more moderate. Yep, it's true.
Yeah, a lot of them do.
But I think a lot more Republicans want to move towards the center as well.
Oh yeah, he's live right now. There he is.
Yeah, he is. He's popping and rocking.
So how do I fucking get rid of this
chat
shit?
Running.
Oh no, it will in a minute.
Has anybody said anything? Can I go first? Can I put first?
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously.
Radon.
So let's see. Are you? Do you?
Is Radon too dated?
All right, let me go to his chat real quick.
Oh, let's hear what he's saying.
Oh yeah, we should make sure we can hear him.
Slating all of them. While social ownership being the common element shared by its various forms,
let's see.
In 21st century, used by conservatives to taint liberal and progressive policies, proposals, and public figures. Yeah, I guess they're kind of right. It's all about what it means. What does it mean? What does it mean?
Yes, it's happening.
Right. Socialist systems are divided into non-market and market forms. Okay, let's see what Merriam-Webster has to say.
Let's see.
You see that little jab in there? Little jab. I ain't no conservative, but damn. You got that jab in there on the wiki jab, yo. Thanks, Seawall. Okay, Merriam-Webster. Socialism. Definition of socialism. Any of the various economic and political theories advocating collective or government ownership and administration.
See, what's something funny we can say, guys?
And distribution of goods. A system of society or group living in which there is no private property. That's terrifying. Sorry, it doesn't say that there. I shouldn't prejudge. A system or condition of society in which the means of production are owned and controlled by the state. A stage of society in Marxist theory transitional between capitalism and communism and distinguished by unequal distribution of goods and pay according to work done. All right. Social democracy usage guide. Wow. It's such a controversial word that they got usage guides.
All right.
Thanks, live chat. I appreciate it. All right, we're going to the next song, people. How is socialism different than communism? Communism is often contrasted with capitalism and democracy.
Let's see.
These can be false equivalencies depending on the usage. Capitalism refers to an economic theory in which a society's means of production are held by private individuals or organizations, not the government.
Oh, here's what we need to do.
Oh, so socialism.
Let's see if we can get his shoe on his head.
Trying to keep an open mind here, folks.
Shoe on head.
She is quite right. For example, to stress that Thatcher's crusade against socialism was not resetting. Okay, Seawall says
that's true.
Socialism is a step towards communism.
And yeah, Midget B, that's absolutely
that's
true.
Webster. Everything I'm checking out is on the interwebs. Lenin's great genius. Oof.
Yeah, everyone spam shoe on head.
Wow.
Put your shoe on your head.
Lenin's great genius, of course, was for ideology, which was
redefined
all too often to support the tactical requirements of a movement. By owing to his fanatical conviction of his own righteousness, especially where socialism was concerned, and also to the Promethean force of his will. His pronouncements were enshrined by his followers as universal truths. India, mid-90s. India.
Shoe on foot,
China.
please.
Fucking Seawall, man. What's up?
God damn it, Seawall. Always a contrarian.
Can't do it. All right, dictionary.com. Socialism, a theory or system of social organizations, product organization.
Oh man, I can't see his video anymore.
Manufacturing organization. Yes, it advocates the vesting of the ownership and control of the means of production and distribution of capital, land, etc., in the community as a whole, procedure or practice in accordance with this theory and Marxist theory,
He's
the
doing a
stage
good job
following
of ignoring
capitalism
us.
in the transition.
Yeah, he's doing a
to
pretty
society.
good job with
Found
his
it.
dickhead.
There's my answer. There it is. Seawall nailed it. Seawall nailed it.
Let's start a rant. Is that
A legit person.
Seawall nailed it.
I'm assuming. Cool. Next track.
I know, see, well, we're not gonna be rude.
Oh,
He's a friend of ours. We like him. He's all right for a
nice.
white boy.
yeah.
All right.
Are we gonna look at some news over this jazzy beat? I was reading about this earlier, but
Yeah, it's fun. All right, we're gonna piece them out. Oh wait.
this amused me.
Can we try one more thing?
Yeah.
Okay,
Let's see if we can get him to
I don't know if anyone's
freestyle.
seen the. I don't know if anyone's seen the Chappelle
Do
Show
what?
before, but the pilot
Let's see if we
episode
can get him to
of the Chappelle
freestyle,
Show
like rap.
is
Throw it in
about
there.
a
All right.
blind black
Yeah.
white supremacist, and he doesn't know that he's black and he's a white supremacist, and it's very funny. It's one of the funniest episodes of the show I've ever seen. I love the Chappelle Show, and this guy I would say is his arch nemesis. Neo-Nazis group New Leader is a black man who vows to dissolve it. Black activist James Hart Stern says he will work to undermine the National Socialist movement. The group
I don't know if
he
he's
now
gonna
leads.
look.
I think that's very funny. I think that's very ironic. Good for this guy. James Stern of Jackson, Mississippi, at a news conference in Jackson,
Yeah,
Mississippi
he's
on June
ignoring
4th, 2012.
Yeah,
one
he
of the largest
sucks.
and oldest neo-Nazi groups
No,
in
he
the
doesn't
US
suck. I like
appears to
him.
have an unlikely new
We just
leader.
didn't have enough people.
Stern, a black activist who has vowed to dismantle it.
I blame the audience.
I think it said this guy was
Ours
in
are
Detroit.
his.
Yes. Yeah, our audiences have a large overlap.
That's your fault. That's all your fault.
I guess so.
You're supposed to have looked at all the different streams to make sure we're not streaming the same time as anybody else. Like I mentioned, wow, great raid. Yeah, John, that
Yeah, it
lead,
was fantastic.
lead brick.
Yeah, so last thing I said was, see ya, man. No shoe on head, no views.
You're an asshole. You're a fucking asshole.
I know.
I'm glad we don't have people like that in our chat.
I know, right?
Oh
It's a
my
good
god.
thing I'm the biggest asshole in our chat.
Yeah, I'll give you that one. Hey, so anyway, let's get on with some stuff. So, hey,
All right,
John,
let's do it.
have you ever thought about moving to the West Coast? You should go to Oregon.
No.
Yeah, look, they
Never.
approved a statewide mandatory rent control.
Yeah.
The whole state. It's not even like given options for parts of the state, but they've got such a major housing crisis in Oregon. It's getting pretty nasty up there. But then I started looking at the numbers, and here was some things that stuck out to me. Like they say that it's the housing market's getting out of hand. So first off, the average rent for an apartment is $1,400 a month. Does anybody here think $1,400 a month is excessive for an apartment?
For a
Because
two-bedroom?
Yeah,
Not
'cause
really.
that's kind of standard here, right? It's not
Yeah.
far off the mark from here, where we're at least. And I can imagine it's like that in other places. But
Oh, yeah.
they were saying the new law that they they used an emergency measure to put this into place. So it caps landlords at a 7% rent increase plus inflation. Okay?
Yeah.
But the article points out that earlier that they had the averages over the last few years were around 5%. So 4 consecutive years of rent hikes averaging 5% or more. Now, averaging 5% or more, that's still below the threshold that they set at 7%. Now, I
Yeah.
understand that some people are going to go much higher than 5% and skew that number somewhat,
Sure.
but still 5% or more. What are you helping? You're locking it in. I understand. You're stopping. So they're stopping the big kids that want to just like price gouge, I guess. Stop the
Mm-hmm.
price gougers. But you don't think that's a good thing, right? You don't agree it's a good thing to put that in place?
No, not really. I mean, so they have a lot of other things that they can look at to cut down on people's, income. The taking from their income is what I mean. So, like, for one thing, Portland has a shitload of taxes, being a very liberal city. So, I mean, they cut down some of that, people can afford rent, as opposed to just stopping people from, or stopping them, or trying to control the market is what I'm trying to say.
Right.
And yeah, like Seawall says, they can actually allow development of new places, and then they'll compete, and they'll have lower rent, which means everyone else's lower rent will lower in order to compete.
So, according to the article, it's estimated that renters pay approximately 50% of their wages in rent. Okay, and the minimum wage in Oregon is $10.75 an hour. That's the Oregon minimum wage, right?
Jesus,
So at $10.75 an hour, a full-time job pays
that's a
you
lot.
$400 something a week, right? So 16, 17,
That's
1800.
before taxes. That's all
Right.
before taxes. I mean,
Well,
all
right,
this
that's
like
before taxes.
exactly, which
So
is what when it was saying, oh, it takes. What'd you say it was pre-show? It was like 40% of your income or 50.
in Oregon, it's 50%. In
Yeah,
the federal
it's 40,
estimation of what it should be is 30.
30. Yeah. So, but I mean, all those numbers are always taken before taxes.
Sure. That's understandable. I
So
get that.
yeah. So I mean, if it takes 50% of your income, and then you're taxed on top of that, I mean, you have no money.
Right. Now, see,
So I mean, yeah. So I think that allowing more development for new competitive, housing, and then removing a lot of those taxes, and boom, people have more money in their pocket. The rent goes down.
well, the problem is population is moving to Oregon, right? So it's a population influx that's going on in Oregon. Housing developers and builders can't keep up with the need, so prices for existing apartments and homes are going through the roof. So
Sure.
there's so much demand, which is the way the market works, right?
Yeah.
So they're hoping to stem that. But if there's not enough houses, how are you going to give people affordable housing
Right.
anyways?
So they
Right?
need to, instead of trying to
It's
control the market, they need to allow, more development, get rid of some of these regulations that are stopping development and allow them to develop and then have a competitive market.
Now, Seawall makes some decent points. That minimum wage is not designed to be lived off of.
It
It's
shouldn't exist
considered
at
an
all.
unskilled starting wage. Well, okay, so you don't think there should be?
Minimum wage now.
Explain that.
What? Explain that there shouldn't be a minimum wage?
Because you think it would drive competition to bring in employees?
Well, I think it punishes small businesses. I mean, if you're forced to pay someone and you don't have, a certain amount, be it 10.75 or $10 or God forbid $15 an hour, it's gonna be much harder for them to get up off the ground. I mean, companies like Amazon or Walmart or any of these huge companies, they kind of take that blow a little easier. But like someone who's just trying to start up is not going to be able to do that, and they're going to have to work much harder on their own in order to make it happen. And then as soon as they try to get employees, it's just going to cause all kinds of problems.
But without the
I mean,
minimum
this is
wage,
why
are those companies going to get employees? Because right now, in the present standard, if the minimum wage is more than a smaller company can afford to pay, they can't afford to pay somebody even near any kind of wage that they could even live partially on. I mean, if you're talking, companies wanting to pay $6 and $7 an hour, nobody can work for that.
The
You
thing
can't
is,
even
though,
afford to go to work in places, certain places
you'll be
for that.
paid. You'll be paid what you're worth. You'll be paid what value you bring to the company.
I'm talking about the smaller companies that you just put
Yeah,
out there. There's really not a lot of value to bring to the company when it's a small company looking for base level employees, like low paid employees. There's no value to be paid on that. They're making a product. They want to pay $5-6 an hour for employees because they can't afford more than that.
Yeah, but they can hire like a 16-year-old or a 17-year-old or 18-year-old, someone in college who will just appreciate the couple $100 in their pocket at the time. Instead of having to pay them $15 an hour, they can pay them $8.
But see that, and then that goes into discrimination as far as who you're hiring. I mean,
there's discrimination no matter what in hiring, even if it's against the law. There's discrimination in hiring. There's nothing you can do about it.
I get that. That doesn't make it right. And I'm just saying,
sure,
you're going to run into situations where people need those jobs.
I mean, what kind of discrimination are we talking about, though? Well, I mean, discrimination on like labor value is what we're talking about. It's how much how much we're paying you versus how much you're going to give.
I don't want to hire you. I can't hire you because you're too high priced.
If you can't afford someone, who's if you can't afford someone who,
I don't know that they will stand a very good chance of getting decent employees, or they'll wind up hiring, illegals that'll do the money for those low wages. I don't know. Could you picture somebody going to work for $5 or $6 an hour in the present day and age?
No, so they're going to have to. No, so they're going to have to pay more. Otherwise, they're not going to get employees.
Right. That's
why I brought up. That's why I brought up like $8. That's why I brought up like $8. That's what I made at my first job. That's what I made at my first job was $8.
Well, I understand that,
but that was in South Carolina, where the minimum wage is lower than that, or it was at least at the time, 11, 12 years ago when I first got my first job.
Well, when it's all said and done, I understand that this idea of minimum wage being a starter wage for an unskilled, but that happens to a lot of people. They lose a job in an industry and they have to change industries. Things like this. They lose it. They can't work in the job that they were doing anymore, and they have to find something else. So you have to
make cuts. Yeah, until you can find something better. You make cuts in your spending. And
it's sad that we're in a day and
fiscally
age
responsible.
That you can't go get a normal job and make a livable wage. It's kind of sad. I'm not saying it's anybody's fault. I'm just saying it fucking sucks.
It's the government's fault.
How is the government by what? Putting a minimum wage in place?
By constantly printing more money, so making people worth less. By trying to control the invisible hand of the market constantly, which can't be done. This is why socialism fails, because it's about centralized control of the economy. Doesn't work. If they just let it alone, it would work. And yeah, like Seawall says, there's no system is perfect.
But see, that's why I, with that in mind, my question to you is, everybody's answer is just, just let it do its thing. It'll work. Well, that's not going to be perfect at all either.
No, of course not.
You're going to have...
But just because it's not perfect doesn't mean it's not better.
But you're going to have major disparagements in how things go. I mean...
In what way?
Well, the idea behind a free market is great, but ultimately, no matter what else happens, it leads to price gouging. It leads to manipulation of supply and demand. Now, not to say that those things aren't manipulated still at present, but there's some egregious directions it can go. I mean, you can say, without a minimum wage, sweatshops would be okay in this country.
No, they wouldn't.
Yeah, you could run a sweatshop. If you wanted to hire people for $5 an hour and treat them like shit employees, you could do it.
I wouldn't work for something like that.
I'm not saying you would. I'm saying there are people that would wind up doing it, I'm sure, because
if they do, then they do, but I wouldn't do it, and I wouldn't encourage anyone else to do it.
But that would be okay if they wanted to. If people wanted
to
work
in those sweatshops, we have those. Well, those exist in this country.
Not legally.
Yeah, they do. They're not called sweatshops, but they are sweatshops. Especially, you ever been to a silk screening warehouse? That's a literal sweatshop. It is hot as balls, and you just sit there in one spot and do whatever your part of the line is, and just do that for 8-10 hours a day.
Yeah.
You're treated like
That's
shit.
not
You're
what we.
replaced easily.
Yeah,
It's the same thing.
but you get a minimum wage. You get the benefits of the job, that are provided. It's not a sweatshop where you come in and work for $3 a day with no.
And no one's going to work for a place for $3 a day.
Okay.
No one's going to work for $3 a day. Not in this country.
Sure. A lot of people come to this country to work for minimal money per hour so they can send it back home.
Yeah, but not $3 a day.
You'd be surprised, John. You'd be surprised what illegal immigrants are willing to take for money because they live in groups and they can take so much less money and then they pay minimum amount of bills and then they send it all away. Now, $3 is probably a lot less. That's what you get in other countries. That's about the equivalent of what people are seeing there at best. But here, I could see $5-6 an hour, $5 to $6 an hour sweatshops springing up. And it would be sad that people would have to take those jobs.
It's sad that people would take those jobs, not have to. That's the point. No one has to do anything.
And Mitch is right. People will still buy the shit out of that. Now, I'm curious about something. Seawall says price gouging can only exist if monopolies are allowed to exist, which can only exist with government backing. So, only if monopolies are allowed to exist. So, a monopoly can't exist
without government backing.
If the government weren't involved, a monopoly would not be able to exist.
Probably not. Not that it would be impossible, but it would be way more difficult.
So someone like Amazon would not be able to create a monopoly?
Probably not. Like I said, it would be way more difficult. Not that it's impossible, but it would be way more difficult if they weren't receiving all kinds of government subsidies.
Yeah. Well, I mean, how much of their profit base is government subsidies? I mean, are you talking about subsidies?
Oh no, it's probably not much.
Or are you talking about loopholes in taxes?
Well, that too.
Right.
Yeah, I mean that too.
But I even look at the cable companies. If the government stepped out of trying to control them, if the FCC wasn't there, I could see AT&T creating a monopoly of media services.
I doubt it. You'd have to get all the intellectual property on your side and all that, and not like. And yeah, no, Seawall's right. The East India Trading Company only existed because of the British government, which is true. They had kind of a symbiotic relationship where the British government would take over a certain area, be it India or Mauritius or some other East Coast African countries. And a number of other places. And then the East India Company would come in and do all the trade and, transporting goods and packets and all this kind of nonsense. And so they kind of formed a symbiotic relationship in that way, that they were able to kind of work together. In fact, a lot of the East India Company ships got British Marines on their ships to guard their ships. And a lot of them got naval escorts, stuff like that, to help them make sure that they made it to their destination.
Yeah, they used to teach that in school, so I've heard all that before.
Did they really used to teach that? Because I learned that on my own.
I learned about the East India Trading Company when I was in grade school, yeah. Maybe junior high, or whatever, 6th, 7th grade, somewhere around there. Yeah, they were still teaching history once upon a time.
Yeah. Yeah, we didn't really learn history. I had to learn that on my own.
Well, so I don't know. Maybe putting this regulation in place, it's probably too much government oversight. It doesn't seem to be legitimate government oversight because it seems to kind of as somebody pointed out in the chat earlier, that when it's all said and done, now everybody's just going to go, oh well, I could just charge 7% where I would normally have only charged 2%. It's like, oh, now people are going to make out on that. But then as soon as someone comes along at a lower rate, your people are going to move over there, and you're not going to, you're going to have to adapt. Here's the irony.
And that's the point.
A lot of the people that are moving into Oregon are moving there because of jobs and lower cost of living.
Well, probably moving there from California.
But right,
which is even worse.
Which has a lower cost of living, higher cost of living. Exactly.
Right.
There's your irony. They're trying to go somewhere where there's a lower cost of living and can't afford to live there.
At least until all the Californians get there, and then they vote for the same bullshit that raise their cost of living in California. Bring that over to Oregon, and then Oregon's fucked, and then they're going to move on to somewhere else and ruin that too. You wait. Give it 10 years. They're going to start moving into the Midwest and fucking it all up. And Mitchie's right, and they can still smoke weed over there.
Right. So speaking of government oversight, we had something going on this week that I thought was is kind of interesting to watch. I watched it for quite a while, and that was Michael Cohen speaking to the Senate / Judicial whatever Oversight Committee. And had some pretty damning things to say about our God Emperor Trump. And now bearing in mind we're talking about Michael Cohen, and I'm just going to go ahead and just put it out there. This was my favorite part of the entire thing. Every Republican made sure to point it out that Michael Cohen is a liar and is going to jail for lying to the Senate.
Where's the lie, though?
Just make sure that everybody understands. See, here he is.
Yep,
and
there he goes.
Basically what it is, like Mitch says, but Michael Cohen, let's put a convicted liar in front of a Congress for a fucking clown show. And it's understandable.
Yeah, that's what it was.
However, that is all the Republicans really said the entire time.
I don't know. They caught him on several discrepancies.
They caught him
story.
They caught him on. Well, some of the things they were trying to catch him on were like not necessarily about his story so much as, I don't know. They seemed to a few things they tried to just leave a hanging Chad kind of thing, like they do in court. There's a point to ponder. But they were going off on the paperwork that he had filed coming into the thing, and it asked about foreign contracts, and he had put none over the last 2 years, but he was having dealings going on with foreign entities. They just weren't government, so there was this discrepancy, and they kept gnawing on that for a little while, wanting to know. They kept gnawing at him to commit to not taking a book deal, not taking a movie deal, not making any money off of this. And he's, and he told him, he's like, people have approached me about this, but I'm not currently talking to anybody about this. Yes, but will you commit to not? No. He was flat. He's like, no.
That's just showing that his character is in question and his testimony is in question.
Everybody sells their shit. It doesn't matter who
it is.
They all sell the book.
Yeah. But it's to show that he has an ulterior motive for being there, as opposed to just finding the truth or just giving the truth.
Right.
That's the whole point of it. Whether or not it works, that's what it's for.
Now,
they don't really care if he has a book deal or a movie deal or whatever. They really don't care. It's just for that reason.
Now, that being said, we understand that Michael Cohen is a liar. But now he was not he was not testifying about a case. He was giving testimony to the Oversight Committee. Now their job, that's our checks and balances coming in, right? This is oversight in Washington. So let's see, so when he brings these accusations to them, am I correct that they are the group that should be taking these accusations serious enough to at least look into them? Because they are the Oversight Committee, right? That's their job. Mm-hmm. If Donald Trump is colored outside the lines, if he's accused of that, then that's their job, correct?
Right. But that would have been covered in the Mueller investigation, I guarantee. So,
has that been going in front of the Oversight Committee yet? Or
not yet. It hasn't been in public, no.
Right.
But it's been going on for 2.5 years now? 2 years? 2.5 years? If that was an issue, that would have been brought up already.
Right.
There would have already been articles of impeachment brought up.
Well, that's what I'm trying to figure out. It's like, okay, so I understand the Mueller investigation and what it's looking into, but some of these things that he pointed out, some of the accusations he made, allege that Trump lied under oath. So if he did, that is something the Oversight Committee absolutely has to look into. Because there is no precedence outside of the fact that, yes, he was under oath and he lied before, but he was currently under oath, so either he is or he isn't lying at this present time in this testimony this week.
Oh, he's a lying ass motherfucker.
Well, I understand that.
Regardless, he's lied back then and he's lying this time, and he's just lying.
But they have to approach that from ground zero to a certain extent, don't they?
Yeah, of course.
Because this is new testimony, new evidence was introduced, so they have to start that off as innocent until proven guilty on all counts. His testimony
on that part,
until they find out it was false. I just want to make sure I understand what their role in this is.
Well, of course. I mean, you're going to go through due process, right?
Because there's some of these things are
eye-raising. Charges. If he's going to be brought up on more charges, it's going to be a brand new investigation, brand new due process. So he's going to be innocent until proven guilty, and then he'll probably do 2 months in jail anyway, even if he's found guilty again.
So one of the things that he brought forward were checks that were written to him from Donald Trump that were supposed to be repayments for the hush money to Stormy Daniels. There's some questions about that because about whether or not Donald Trump was forthcoming in that in his fiscal statements whenever he was coming into the presidency, about whether or not that was a debt he owed, and he didn't put it down as a debt, and then the following year he put it down as a footnote that somewhere between $100,000 and $250,000 debt was owed to someone.
Yeah.
So that leaves it questionable. They say there's some question there. Is that touching on any laws? But the fact that the racist remarks, if anybody thinks that Donald Trump doesn't make racist remarks and misogynistic remarks, they're a fool. They're a fool, right? He does.
Whatever.
He has. He just has.
He just has.
I'm not saying
no evidence necessary. He just has.
This doesn't come as a shock. I mean, we've heard what he'll say about women.
He's a New York Democrat. He's not racist. He's a New York Democrat. He's not racist.
The blacks love me. If that's not like a very racially opinionated statement.
That's not racist, though.
If anybody else said it, if I walked into a black neighborhood and said, "Hey, the blacks love me," I'd get my ass kicked.
Well, yeah, because you're a lily ass looking motherfucker.
I'm not Donald
that's why.
Trump. I can't get away with saying anything that I want to say. Grab him by the pussy much. All right, I'm just saying.
That's not racist, though. Grab him by the pussy is not racist. I
said racist and misogynistic.
I know.
So thank you.
I don't think that's misogynistic either.
It's exactly what that falls into. Misogyny.
I don't know. They just let you do it. I mean, when you're rich and powerful, they'll just let you do it.
So
you don't even ask first.
So they
just do it.
They accused. He accused Donald Trump of taking a phone call from Roger Stone, stating that he knew about the WikiLeaks drop of documents before they ever came out. Cohen says he was in the room for the phone call. It was on speakerphone. Trump has testified that he had no idea about the dump. So there's that. There's a portrait of him. This is one that I'm like, okay, what does this fall under? That he bid on a portrait of himself. Basically, he drove the price up, and then it says the fake bidder was then repaid by the Trump Foundation. Basically, he drove up the price of a painting of himself and then bought it himself through somebody else.
Nice.
Now, I don't know what kind of fraud that is.
It's not fraud. That's strategy.
And I agree, Midget. There's a lot of questions about the WikiLeaks timeline.
Yeah. Cohen is just, you can tell he was so nervous about just being there. He's a fucking liar.
I found this interesting. And I get, and I understand CYA, but it's a law in this country that you can't release private information. So, information about education, doctors, things like this, right? So, you have your Privacy Act involved with your school documentation, but Trump actually found it necessary to send threatening letters
Well, did he?
Yeah, but
Or
he
is
did.
Cohen lying about
No.
that?
No. There was confirmation from the school, from Fordham. He went to Fordham and then he graduated from Pennsylvania, University of Pennsylvania. But Fordham, there's a letter that was sent to Fordham, and it basically runs down, points out to them that this is what the law states, and if you, do this, or this, we will take all action to the furthest extent of the law, including criminality.
Yeah,
And
fair enough.
And it's like, okay, but if it's a law
I don't think that's
already,
illegal, though. Yeah, I don't think that's illegal.
why do you
Send
why
them
do
a
you need
letter
to threaten
reminding them.
Well, it was.
Well, I don't
it
think
was,
that's not
it
a
was
problem.
considered a threatening letter, and that's how. Well, that's how it was framed. Okay, so.
But that's not saying like, oh, nice school you have there. Be ashamed if it burned down. It's a little bit different than that.
Well, no, but threatening with litigation is still threatening somebody. I mean, that's a.
I mean, technically, yeah, but I mean, he's just reminding them, like,
because they asked him, they were like,
here's the law.
Did you send out Were you asked to send out threats to multiple people while you worked for Trump? And he's like, yeah. And they're like, so how many times? Up to 100, upwards to 100. And he's like, more. And they're like 200 more. He's, hey, would you say somewhere more than 500? He said probably around upwards to 500 different times that he was asked to send out threatening letters. But I'm like, okay, you're a lawyer, and this is Donald Trump. You're probably going to send out a bunch of threatening letters.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's the point. That's the point I'm making, Seawall. That's kind of Trump's thing. It's like, just anybody that knows anything, just like the doctors, don't let any of my information come out. But he even has to go so far as to go after, make sure and keep organizations in check that are already checked by the federal government.
Yeah, I don't think not only is that not a problem, but it's actually like smart to do it, because then when you go to court later on after it's leaked, you can be like, look, we reminded them of the law, and they broke it anyway.
So my biggest thing out of all of it is that if Trump lied in any of his testimony to Congress, I think that needs to be brought forward, because if everybody's going to be held accountable for perjury, if it's true, that's the big if, then I think it needs to be held accountable for it. This was interesting to me, though. Michael Cohen, the first testimony that he gave to Congress in which he lied, apparently Trump's lawyers, and he named lawyers on Trump's organization that looked at his testimony and made amendments to his testimony before he took it before Congress. So Trump himself, Trump's organization itself had an impact, according to him, on the testimony he gave to Congress, and he named names on that. So
but remember what he said was like, it was very dubious. He's like, oh, I knew what he wanted me to say, but he was never directly told that. So it's kind of like it's just like he said, she said, they said.
Well, they asked him directly if edits were made to the testimony, and he said yes. And they said, were they made by Trump's lawyers, Trump's team that looked over the testimony? And he said yes. Can you tell us who that was?
Right.
And he named like 3 different lawyers.
Yeah.
And said that they were responsible for reviewing and making edits to that testimony.
Yeah, and I'm sure they were already, talked to by Mueller and the Intel committee.
Were they grammatical? See, and that's the thing.
Grammatical.
Now,
correcting.
They probably were. As long as Trump didn't do it himself, they were probably somewhat grammatically correct. He has a little trouble sometimes. I'm not knocking the guy. I'm just saying. Now, understand, I take this all with a grain of salt, but I do expect that if someone is going to get up there and get up before the Oversight Committee and make a sworn testimony, whether they have previously been proven a liar or not, the Oversight Committee needs to look at some of these things. Not all of it. Some of it is just whatever. It's fluff, and it's just so much cat dander. But if there were lies to Congress and you're going to hold everybody else accountable for it, that's the big one for me. Because that's where I've always thought Trump was going to tie himself up, is by the way he will say something today and say something else tomorrow, and then the third time he may go back to one or other of the two or something different, but his story has had a tendency to change over many of these issues.
Sure.
About what he did and didn't know. And we've called other shenanigans in other presidencies for the same thing. So I'm hoping the Oversight Committee looks at these things.
Yeah, but unfortunately, there's very little accountability in the government in general.
And he says, but they're not. I know the Clinton, Obama hold or other Obama admins. Yes, and if there's, is there, are there ongoing cases there, or are these just been left? Do they do like everything else and dust in the wind when the new president comes aboard?
Yeah, they do, and they're just anti-Trump. That's all it is. They're just looking for any small, tiny little granule of sand that they can get him with, and it's just not happening for them, and they're very frustrated by that.
Well, I think it's pretty much gotten frustrating for everybody, right? And it's frustrating to hear these allegations coming from Cohen. That's the sad thing.
Even more insane is that the Mueller investigation has been going on before he became president, right? Or was it right after? Either way, it's gonna be taking up his whole term.
Adam said he plans to look into all of Trump's dealings. Yeah, they're bringing they've started. I guess they're going to start grilling one of his his big financial guy, some guy that's been in his books for a long time. They're going to start grilling him about money, Trump's money. So
riveting.
So it's the kind of thing. Like I said, the money. It bothers me, but that bothers me from a character standpoint. If you're going to own it, own it. If not, don't wishy-wash all the way through it and not tell us what the fuck is going on. You say that you're honest and you're transparent. Well, just be fucking transparent. I paid the woman off so she'd shut the fuck up. I tried not to do it with any campaign money, so it wouldn't cause me any issues, and it would keep me distance. That's the bottom line. It's been happening with other presidents throughout history. This one just kind of came to light, and instead of sitting here arguing about it anymore, I'm just going to fucking own it. I didn't do anything wrong. I just paid some hush money and kept it above board. If it's above board, say
he doesn't need to do that, though.
Be done with it.
Why would he? He doesn't need to do that. He'll just let it come out as it comes out, and he's dealing with other shit. He's busy in North Korea. Busy about North Korea.
Like I said, his
character. This bullshit.
That's where his character would come in. I keep waiting for that to surface. I keep hoping it's going to surface.
Why would you do that? It's not going to happen.
You don't think he has character?
I don't think he has a character that you want him to have.
Well, I would like for all of our time and money to not be wasted on this stuff anymore. If there's a reliable source that we want to believe that can come forward and tell us something substantial, those are the people I want to hear from. Give us something. Otherwise, let's get back to things that are, like you said, happening in the world. I mean, his focus was on, at the same time, was on being in North Korea. Well, not in North Korea, but meeting with Kim Jong-un from North Korea. They met where?
In Vietnam, Hanoi, something like that.
Singapore.
Some shitty. No, it's Vietnam.
Donald Trump didn't get much in the way of North Korean denuclearization in Singapore, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. That's how this article starts. It was in Singapore.
Well, no, the last one was in Singapore. This one was in Vietnam.
Okay. Oh, God damn it.
Yeah, fuck you. One of us doesn't know what we're talking about.
No, you know what it is? I had two. I had one. I was going to try and do some comparison stuff between the old one and the new one. So this new one, where was it at?
In Vietnam. Fucking boomer.
Anyway,
Jesus.
So he was. Look, all I know is they were in a rice paddy somewhere, right?
It's true. Yeah.
There was a rice paddy. They were Hanoi. That's why I said Hanoi.
Hanoi. Yeah.
Did it sound like I said Singapore? 'Cause
Yeah.
my enunciation has gotten worse as I'm getting older. Sometimes
Right.
I oversyllabic things.
Sure.
So this one didn't really go so well. This one just kind of stalled out.
Yeah.
Why do you think that is?
I think that Kim Jong Un asked for too much. He said, lift all of the sanctions off of North Korea in exchange for denuclearization, and Trump wasn't willing to do that. And so, if they can't come to an agreement quickly, then it's better to end the meeting than to try and drag it on.
Yeah, so and that's what Trump said. He's like they wanted full sanctions relief, and the only thing on the table was Yongbyon. Is that
Yes,
how
yeah.
Yongbyon?
I don't know how to pronounce it. I don't speak Korean.
They
but...
were going to dismantle that main complex in exchange for full release of sanctions.
Yeah, which is absolutely ridiculous.
And that's so that's not what North Korea says, right? North Korean Foreign Minister Ri Yong Ho said Pyongyang had only demanded partial sanctions relief in return for closing Yongbyon. He said the U.S. had wasted an opportunity that may not come again, and Pyongyang's position would not change even if the U.S. seeks further talks. So he's claiming they did not ask for full sanctions.
And that's a standard way for North Korea in particular, but for Asian politics to run anyway. Is if since Trump got up and left, he disrespected Kim Jong Un doing that. So of course they're going to come back with their own shot, right? They're going to come back and say, "Oh well, we actually wanted this," which they probably didn't even bring up during the meeting. They probably intended to, but never got that far. So they put it out to the public that that's what they wanted, which was probably true what they wanted, but they hadn't gotten to that point yet. And then they're going to say, "Oh, well, it might not happen again," as a way of saying, like, you better come back to the table now, or we might not do it again, but they will do it again. I mean, they need our help more than we need theirs.
So, is it possible that North Korea came out strong with asking for full sanctions relief, expecting Trump to negotiate? And
Oh, hey, Stephen Ignoramus in the chat now. What's up, man?
Look at that. Look who showed up. Hey, have you seen his show lately?
Yeah, I think we saw his show earlier tonight. Gin Gap for Figs.
Destroy that like button. So but the thing is, one article did point out that in this discussion that they were having, Trump pointed out different facilities that we know about in North Korea, and from what other people at the table commented, Kim Jong-un was surprised by some of the locations we knew about. So he was like, "Oh, didn't know you knew about that." Didn't that kind of reaction? And it's like, okay, so are you being straight up with us? This is. I don't feel like Trump's making a great deal here. I don't think he's getting it done. And I don't I understand there's sanctions in place, but the first one was handled so quickly and loosely that
he's made more progress than any other president since the Korean War, since the armistice talks. That was the last time we made any progress.
Did he? So we'll attribute that progress to him, or attribute progress in opening the doors to peaceful relations?
Well, I would give that to him, to Trump,
opening the
because
door.
of how he handles, how he handles Kim Jong Un. He knows how to handle people like that because he's very similar, at least with the ego and the megalomania.
But this is only the second time he's had anything to do with the discussions that have gone on. He's left it all in somebody else's hands. He's not taking active part in these discussions till now. And the first discussion he and Kim Jong actually have about denuclearization leads to a relatively quick walking out and an end to any talks. This is not the impression we got from the first meeting he had with Kim Jong Un. I mean, that likened them to nice, tight, close buddies, and North Korea is going to denuclearize. That's going to happen, and I haven't seen it happening.
Yeah, and Seawall's right over here where he says,
Sure,
crediting Trump was successful
sure.
far.
Japan
But
has
I
even
mean,
nominated him for the Nobel Peace Prize, and I get it. He opened the door
which
to
is so
peace.
fucking funny because Trump is not going to get that Nobel Peace Prize, but Obama got it before he even did anything, and he got a Nobel Peace Prize. And Trump's not going to get it, even if he ended the war and reunited South Korea and North Korea. He still would not get the Nobel Peace Prize, guaranteed.
Who, Trump?
Trump, yeah.
To be honest with you, if he were the kind of diplomat that some other presidents have been, in the past we've had presidents that would actually sit someplace like Camp David with two leaders and negotiate, peace talks between them. Act as an arbitrator, act as a middleman. Trump, that's not the role Trump takes. And if he were to sit down and actively take a role between North Korea and South Korea physically, not just, telling other people, delegating authority to go do things, that would garner. I would say yes, he would be deserving of that. But he's not the kind of guy to broker peace.
But even if he did that, he wouldn't get it. I know that you agree that he should, but he still wouldn't get it.
Well, now that's it depends on who he's pissed off that sits on the the judges panel, I guess. What?
Yeah.
I don't know who is it that decides on that. You should know.
I don't know, some fucking intellectual, fucking retards. I don't know, fuck them. A bunch of academics,
Unless
man.
they invite you to sit on the council, right? Then they're all
No,
right.
fuck that. I'm not gonna sit on the
there's
damn
Jay
council.
Edgar as well. Do we know where Stephen is going to be Monday? Where's Stephen going to be Monday?
Stephen Ignoramus is actually going to be on Ed's World on Monday.
Shut up! I want to be on Ed's World.
You were
again.
again.
It was cool.
Yeah, that was fun. I'll do it again too if he asks. That'd be sweet. But I don't think he will. He doesn't like us now. Cry.
Obama got one for being black. Good call, midget.
Yeah, no, it's true.
I don't agree with Obama.
He did though.
I don't agree with that.
Oh yeah. No, he shouldn't have gotten it.
People who say nuclear power shouldn't talk need to be deported, and I agree. They should be talking. And I think that's the only thing where Trump does lack, in my opinion, is that he's not the kind of guy that two leaders want to sit down and have broker peace for them. Does that? I mean, if you were a world leader, would you want him being the middle guy, the arbitrator in a discussion for the peace of your two countries?
Wait, who? Trump?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Would you really?
Yeah.
Why?
I feel like I could talk to him because you can talk to him straight up. Like you don't have to go all these little diplomatic niceties and stuff. You can just be like, "Yo, Trump, what's up, bruh?"
But he would be coming into the conversation with no fucking clue about either country.
Even better. Even better, because then I can get what I want. That's right, the art of the deal.
The art of the deal, baby.
Damn right.
Yeah, nobody ghostwrites like Trump. Or, what?
So what? Here's a ghostwriter. You gave him shit about not being able to write earlier, and he write his own book, too?
Hey, you know what?
Fuck that.
You know why I gave him shit about it? Because he didn't ask me to ghostwrite it. I would have. I could have ghostwritten that. I would have been the one.
I bet you would. I bet if he emailed you right now, it was like, "Can you ghostwrite this book for me?" You'd be like, "Yes, please."
Oh yeah.
And you go and lick it, and you'd lick his boots and everything.
I would so subtly weave in a dark socialist fucking plot, Marxist.
You think so? Like he's a secret socialist.
Just all sorts of just subtle. I would have to find some way footnote shit with it. I don't know. I would have to find ways and hope that nobody edited behind me.
Right. Oh yeah. I'm sure that it gets seen by several editors before it goes out, and I'm sure it's approved by Trump himself.
So, do you think that this is going to escalate us back to the point we were at with North Korea? Is this
to the point that we were?
Right.
What, before?
Right. So
no, I mean, I think it's only going to get better. I think that it's going to. I think he's going to be brought to the table again, in a few months from now.
They're going to ask him
And
to
then,
come to the table.
yeah,
You think that?
yeah,
So you think that Kim
because they
Jong-un is
obviously
at a
want.
point that he doesn't want to show his ass anymore like he was?
Yes,
Okay.
because I think that he obviously he wanted the sanctions lifted. That was the one thing he really brought to the table was lift the sanctions, right? That's obviously something he wants. The only thing he had to offer was that one facility being taken down
That's all he was willing to offer.
this time,
He wants us to think that
right?
that's primarily their entire nuclear setup.
I don't think so.
I think that's what he wants. Like I said, he was surprised at some of the things that our intelligence had uncovered. You know, he didn't realize we knew about most of the facilities that we talked about with him, and that to me tells me that he was, fucker's
No.
not wanting to denuclearize, and he has no plans to.
Right, but his alliance with China is kind of rocky at the moment as well, and so he knows that they're not going to back him if we decide to do something. Not that we would, but he can't just like hide behind them and throw rocks at us anymore. He's kind of on his own.
Will South
And
Korea
so,
see past this and not
what do you
worry
mean?
about it? Will South Korea not care if, for any reason, the U.S. does not pursue more talks, or if North Korea doesn't pursue more talks, like they said in their propaganda? You'll be lucky to see us come back to the table on this, right? That's kind of what they told their people.
Well, that's what North Korea said, yeah.
Right.
But
So
that means that they want to come back to the table, but they're trying to come at it from a place of power, which they really aren't in a position to do. But obviously, they're going to tell all their people that the U.S. is crawling to them and begging to come back to the table. That's what they do.
So I guess my question is: does South Korea now stop in their moving forward with peace and negotiations until North Korea actually does make an invitation to sit back down at the table? Because for all intents and purposes, this is left at the point that North Korea is back at square one.
Well, I mean, they got some things. They got they got like remains repatriated.
Sure.
To South Korea, which was a big thing.
Right.
They've gotten, and also from South Korea to North Korea, they've gotten a few small things that they've gotten before, in the past, but I really think that, they're going to be coming back to the table in the next, probably in the summer.
You think?
I'll bet you. Yeah.
Okay.
I really think so.
I think part of the problem that Trump is having in in Asian countries is that like Kim Jong-un after the first meeting, he made it a point to stress that he thought it was very disrespectful that the president wasn't coming personally to continue the talks.
Yeah, and it might have been.
And this is something. It's not just North Korea. This is there's this level of honor in Asian countries when you're talking about leaders and authority, where why do you expect me as a leader to talk to your second in command or your lowly guy here? We should be talking as equals. This is something that you're doing.
That's something that Trump understands. He understands that very well, and he's been using it very well against Kim Jong-un. That's why, like I said, he's accomplished more with the North Korean leader than anyone else since the armistice talks. And what was it, 1960, 1950 something, maybe 1960? It's late 50s, I believe. When right before we stopped the Korean War.
Yeah. Well,
that was the last time there was anything good that came out of it.
I don't know. I don't love the bully. I don't even think bully tactics are the right term for what Trump is. The way Trump approaches it.
It's just Asian diplomacy.
Well, I mean, he blends in a very strong level of disrespect with his diplomacy. Like, I don't know.
Well,
It's
yeah.
almost like somehow he manages, especially in the sight of, someone like yourself, how he makes this work for him. Right? Mm-hmm. And it's like, just being a dick. But being a dick and diplomacy just don't seem to work well in my head together. I can't, you know what I mean? I can't justify.
Well, he's doing, like, he's being a dick when it's the appropriate time to be a dick. And then when he comes and sits down at the table, he's probably very nice. We don't know. We don't get to see the talks, on TV, so we don't really know what's going on, what he's like there. But he's disrespectful when he's disrespected. And yes, Stephen, Ignoramus, I wish we could as well. That would be awesome.
What?
Be a fly on those balls.
Okay.
To watch the talks on TV or whatever. Yeah. But I mean, I understand why they're not, televised. But yeah, I mean, we don't know what it's like inside, and so because of that, all we see is he's a dick. And so, and he is at times, but that's what it takes sometimes.
Yeah,
especially if someone's disrespecting you, you say, "All right, well, fuck you then. You need us more than we need you. Stay over there."
Well, I don't. I don't know. I'm not a big fan of it working that way because it doesn't create long term. I don't think it stokes long term relationships of a positive nature. It's more about it feels very Cold War. We're learning to we're learning to be feared, not respected, or we're being respected out of fear. I should say.
I think it's more of like treat us with respect, or we're not going to treat you with respect. And it's as simple as that. That's not really bullying. That's standing up for yourself. That's having a spine.
I'd be willing to posit that Trump's idea of respect towards him is different than just standard respect for everybody else.
But there's a difference between
if you're not loving the orange god,
there's a difference between having respect for Trump and having respect for the U.S. as an entity. And he's just representing the U.S. as an entity at this point.
I hear what you're saying, Seawall. I understand that this is the kind of thing, but it's just I don't know. I can't stand the idea that we haven't evolved that far. It's like our technology moves at jackhammer's pace, but when it comes to civility in the world, we're still fucking carrying sticks. It's just it's sad that we've got to go back to that level. You know what I mean? We're fucking America. We should just, I don't know. Do what?
I don't know. I mean, we've spent too much time appeasing everyone, the rest of the world, and taking care of them.
I get it.
And doing everything for them.
I agree.
And now we're the parent saying, "Get the fuck out of my house and go be on your own and do your own thing." J. Edgar makes love at a sweet love. I'm sorry. J. Edgar makes sweet love at a jackhammer's pace. That's pretty funny.
And Seawall, to touch on what you're saying, I agree. Previous administrations have gotten nowhere with North Korea. I will begrudgingly accept the fact that these kind of tactics seem to be working for Trump. And again, it's not about him. It's the fact that this is where we're still at as a country in this world, and this is where the world is still at. I mean, I don't get why we haven't moved past this. I have children, for God's sakes, and I want to imagine world peace.
More world peace, yeah.
I want to envision world peace. That's what I want, and it's sad that we still haven't gotten any closer. We're still arguing about who's going to set off a firecracker in whose backyard, as opposed to just putting some fucking hot dogs on the barbecue and getting down to business. You know what I mean?
Well, see, it's kind of hard to do that when everyone's taking all your hot dogs. They come over just for your hot dogs and then leave and talk shit about you behind your back.
Well, based on what you're saying, what Seawall's saying, world peace is a fucking lie unless you want to genocide everyone else. Then
It's true, yeah.
I would ask the
I mean,
question.
that's pretty much impossible.
I would ask the question: do we need a Thanos snap? Is that what we
No,
actually need to make everything right in the world?
I disavow.
You don't even,
We do not
you
need.
don't know what it
No,
is, do you?
yeah, I do know what it
Do
is.
you?
There's the whole like he needs to kill like half the life in the galaxy or
Wipes out
universe or
half the
whatever.
population of the universe.
Yeah,
Correct.
yeah, fuck that.
Yep.
You don't need all that.
And Seawall's right. We're a tribal species. There's absolutely nothing we can do to get away from these tribalistic instincts that we have in our nature to do the things that we do. I just want to get past it. But it's either global war or it's local war, right? So, John, there's been other situation going on in the media world, our media world, right? That made us a little hesitant to even talk about it tonight, or made me hesitant because you start throwing around words like what was it called? Shadow bans and deplatforming and everything. You had some interesting stuff to talk about with Alex.
Yeah, we're gonna say the
Jones?
AJ word.
Alex
Jones. Yeah, was on Joe Rogan's podcast this week, and that was very interesting to say the least. So you've got an article here. But yeah, it was crazy. It lasted like almost 5 hours, which I think was probably one of his longest, if not his longest for sure. Like I thought Sargon's appearance was long, and it was like that was almost 4 hours. But with Alex Jones, it was almost 5. Especially once Eddie Bravo came in, who I've got a lot of respect for Eddie Bravo. When I was doing jiu-jitsu back in the day, it was his system that I was learning, the 10th Planet system. So, shout out to Eddie Bravo. But yeah, it was insane especially when you get two conspiracy theorists together. It gets insane. So you want to read some of this article, or
you want me to read?
Yeah, I'm not going to read. That's not very American.
Can you read, John? Can you fucking
sometimes
read? So it says that they made peace during with the podcast, but apparently the feuds between conspiracy theorist Alex Jones and podcaster Joe Rogan has finally come to an end. I didn't even realize they were feuding. Just FYI, I had missed,
slightly. It was just they were kind of pissed off at each other.
Rogan having invited Jones onto his podcast as a gesture of goodwill. Apparently, the two men made amends privately. The podcast being little more than another unhinged speech from Jones. This is coming from Forbes, by the way.
I don't know. Yeah, I know. It's like that's ridiculous that they would have to say anything about it.
Well,
but what's really funny is like it says unhinged, speech or whatever. He actually made more sense during those 4 hours or almost 5 hours than he has at any time on his show. I mean, not that I've watched his show a lot, but he actually got to sit there and explain like how he reached the points of views that he's reached. So that was really interesting to see.
So,
not that I agree with it, but
so if I remember correctly, though, you've told me before that Alex Jones is like ultimately that whatever you see from Alex Jones on what was the name of the show he did before it got pulled?
Infowars.
It was all bullshit, right? It was just all an act by him.
Well, I think he actually does believe a lot of it, but it was like so. What he'll do, and it was actually Sargon who had a very good explanation of this. What he'll do is he'll say something that's like kind of true, and then he'll put this like ridiculous spin on it and make it go way further than it ever really should. And so like it's very easy to see how people get drawn into it because he'll draw these distinct, these lines from one dot to another that wouldn't otherwise exist, but they kind of make sense. So like was already been brought up in the chat, the gay frogs, right? He's saying I don't like them putting chemicals in the water, turning the frickin' frogs gay, right? Well, so that the frogs aren't being turned gay by chemicals in the water, but what's actually happening with them is that they're changing sex. So like the male frogs are becoming female frogs.
That's normal.
Well, that's normal.
That's a
for those
species
chemicals.
thing. That's frogs.
Well,
Frogs have the ability to change gender.
Well, I forget what it was exactly, but it was something along those lines where they were just changing sex. And
Yeah.
so he was kind of right about that, but he was saying it in a very ridiculous way.
Do you remember?
As though that was...
Did you see
Yeah, it's
Jurassic
being
Park?
triggered by chemicals, exactly. The original one, yeah.
Okay, so the original Jurassic Park, what was the problem with the raptors? Or with the eggs that they were making?
I don't remember. That was a long time ago.
They used frog DNA. And they were trying to make an all-male population of dinosaurs, but they used frog DNA, and one of the things that frogs can do is change gender.
Yeah.
And so that was happening to the dinosaurs. That's why they started breeding. So
Yeah,
it's
but
just an inherent it's just an inherent property of frogs.
Seawall here is backing me up. It's being triggered by chemicals, so it's not happening naturally. It's just also happens naturally, I guess.
It's changes in the environment. So maybe there's something in the water that's changing the environment that's prompting it. But
that's probably what it is. Yeah,
they're not snowflake frogs.
They might be. They're non-binary.
They're not being triggered.
They're non-binary
by
frogs.
They're not being triggered by racism. I swear.
Yeah. But yeah, so I mean that's kind of how Alex Jones deals, though. He'll come up with these, or he'll say, conspiracies that are actually true, facts that are actually true, and then put this ridiculous spin on it. So you can keep reading.
A conspiracy is no longer a conspiracy once it's proven true. Isn't that correct, though?
No, I mean you can conspire to commit a crime, right?
Right, but once the crime's committed, there was a conspiracy to commit the crime.
Yeah.
But a conspiracy theory can't be
that's what I'm saying.
If it's only a theory, it can't be true. That's what I'm trying to determine. Is he saying things that he believes is true, and then he just goes crazy on them, or is he saying, or is he taking
he's doing it for
facts?
entertainment? Like I doubt he gets super pissed off like he actually appears to, but he does that for the show. Yeah. Now we got dead air because you want to fucking read the chat. God damn it.
Well, you were talking, John. You know about these
then
frogs. I don't know as much about the frogs.
They're turning the frogs gay, Robert. What are we gonna do about the frogs?
I don't have a problem with it. We get frogs here, and the problem here in Florida is that all the good frogs are being killed by the Cuban frogs. The Cuban tree frogs are killing off all the indigenous frogs.
You mean like the coquille?
Whatever they're called.
Which I believe is the Puerto Rican frog.
No, the Cuban tree frogs. The ones that they come up
Cuban.
Through the Keys on boats and stuff, through the Keys and into Florida. They're eating the indigenous frog species. They actually eat other frogs.
Nice.
Which because the way they eat, it's not the same as the frogs do in the normal frogs do in the ecosystem, though it's throwing off the balance of the ecosystem.
Why do you know so much about frogs?
Because my wife is
Jesus.
Her nickname is Tree Frog. She loves frogs, and we do things in our garden to attract frogs.
Oh, wholesome.
Yeah, it's awesome. So welcome.
That's nice and wholesome.
Yeah, it's a real life world that goes on outside of this fucking show, John.
What? Don't be ridiculous. The show is the world.
See?
Yeah, see exactly with J. Edgar.
No, Midget has it right.
Yeah, they're invasive. I know, but so does J. Edgar. So.
No, he said Alex Jones is harmless, not invasive.
Yeah, and just a humble, shirtless vitamin salesman. That's right.
Vitamin salesman.
He's just a humble merchant selling his wares. That's all. Don't pay him any mind. Certainly don't ban him from every platform ever created by man and several created by monkeys. I mean, Jesus.
So, and is Alex Jones still off of the channel? I mean, granted, I don't know that he would go back, but they've still kept him pulled from the major channels he was on, that he was deplatformed from, right?
Yeah, I believe he's only on his site. I could be wrong about that, but I believe that that's the only place where he is Infowars.com.
Which has probably just gotten such a big boost.
Probably, but I don't
Like he
think that he
doesn't
has
need
anywhere
the.
near the reach
Oh.
that he has. So the actual site like numbers might have gone up, but I don't think he's got as much reach
Oh,
as he
because he
had.
can't broadcast out there on the traditional.
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
well, and I don't. I still haven't been able to wrap my head around that because if he is so obviously just a crack job, I don't understand how he's not put into the political pundit realm or into the pundit media as opposed to being taken seriously enough that he got pulled off platforms when there are so many other more serious and, in my opinion, insightful people talking their shit on in new media
Yeah.
in any media, honestly.
Yeah, and Stephen Ignoramus is right over here. The stuff he was talking about closing his bank accounts is the most scary real shit for real. Like apparently all of his accounts except for one were closed without him doing it. Like they were just closed for him. Just because of like what he says and what he does.
How is that
And
legal?
that's fucking scary. I don't know. Probably some shit to do with you know, the agreement that you sign whenever you open a bank account. That's probably what it is.
Or is that just people exercising free market values? Are these companies that just don't want to be associated with him, so they're dropping him? And is
Yeah,
that not
could
their
be.
absolute right to do it, right?
But yeah, that's why they're not in any kind of legal trouble. As long as they gave him the money back, I mean, I don't think they can just keep the money.
I mean, that says a
But
lot for the guy. He made
yeah,
himself that much of a pariah.
yeah,
That's pretty fucking big.
that's huge. Yeah, and he's become like the right wing martyr now. I mean, he really has. I mean,
Um,
even people who don't agree with what he says are like, "What the fuck are you guys doing to him?" Like, he's just an entertainer. That's it. People watch him for entertainment.
so
They don't.
how does this sit with you, John? Like, okay, so these are, as I said, these are private corporations that
Hmm.
are disassociating themselves with him, refusing him service, right?
Yeah.
Um, based on who he is, but most of it is centered around his right to free speech. His, you know, where do you sit on that? Where is your wrong and right meter when that comes
Well,
in?
so they have every right to do it. They have
Right.
every right to deny him for service if they want, and we have every right as a society to not use those services. Like voluntarily not use their services because of that. Boycotting can work as long as people stick to it.
It almost gives me the impression that we're going to have to find a line where companies are stepping on rights. Am I correct? I mean, is this not going to push us to that point?
Yeah, I mean, I've like kind of gone back and forth on the whole like Internet Bill of Rights thing. Sometimes I'll think oh yeah, I'm for it, and other times I'll be like, no, you know, that's not right. That steps on other people's rights. So I'm not really sure where I stand on it at this point for that. Um, but yeah, at the moment, yeah, I mean, a private company has their right to deny service to anyone for any reason, and that's a value that I think should be upheld.
Well, and you mentioned something here that I keep wanting to gnaw on and really dig my teeth into it, but I haven't decided. This idea of an internet bill of rights
Hmm.
bothers me. Like when I hear, if I hear, are you for an internet bill of rights?
I just said I go back and forth on it.
On the whole, whether or not
Yeah,
it. Uh,
right. Because I mean, on one hand, it guarantees freedom of speech on the internet, which is great. But on the other hand, it steps on the rights of corporations to run as they see fit, and I don't like that either. So it's just kind of I go back and forth.
Because when it's all said and done, I mean, isn't the internet like kind of the, and I'm going to use this term loosely, the Wild West that you want? Isn't that the
Not
perfect
anymore.
place? Isn't it the perfect place well, let's look at it from a free market standpoint. Isn't the internet like one of the best places for a free market to prove itself? Like,
Yeah,
as
it
long
was.
as long as it's not overly regulated, right? As long as it's really not regulated at all. So therein lies the Bill of Rights. Now, granted, taxes are being imposed in states. A lot of and a lot of it's happening from a state level. We want our tax cut of this if stuff's going to ship into our state, right? So it's
Right.
understandable. That's states wanting their money.
That's one
But
thing. Yeah.
outside of that, from a business perspective, as far as retailers go, as far as business itself, if we don't have an internet bill of rights, if we don't have any rules or regulations, then the internet gets to speak for the free market and determine who is the top dog, how smaller companies thrive and or survive in the internet, in this free market that the internet provides. I think it's an excellent petri dish to determine if the free market. But if we introduce an internet bill of rights, that's going to introduce regulation on the internet that is going
Right.
to severely impede a free market.
Yes, I know. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's why I go back and forth on the two.
And
Whether I'm for it or against it, it just depends.
and
I guess on the day.
I strongly expect that any kind of internet bill of rights would not be able to be instituted without determining that you would have to infringe upon constitutional rights of people, thus making
Yeah.
it two separate entities. What you do on the internet is no longer governed by constitutional rights. It is now
Right, but
governed by the Internet Bill of Rights. So now hate speech is actually a crime on the internet. You can say what you want out in public, but on the internet, if it goes against the Internet Bill of Rights, it is now considered a crime.
no, I don't think that's true. But what Seawall says here is also true. If these companies are backed in any way by the government, then they should be covered, bound by the same rules as the government. Which means that you get free speech from places like Facebook and Twitter, who receive government money, regardless of what they receive it for. They receive taxpayer dollars. They're bound by those rules, or should be at least.
Well,
So I agree with that.
Well, and that's the question. So, an Internet Bill of Rights, that would have to be instituted from a federal level, right?
Well,
We
I mean, I
can't
think
rely on states to be able to do that.
yeah, of course, but I do think that that case can be made, though, that these they're already bound by the Constitution by the simple fact that they're taking government money. So I think as soon as they take a government dollar, they are bound by those rules. And so I think that if someone can bring that case to maybe not even the Supreme Court, maybe just like the Ninth Circuit or something slightly lower, that maybe there's at least a case to be made there that the First Amendment would be covered under these companies.
Yeah, and that's where you start to get into this, this fine line, because I really have an issue with anyone telling me, okay, I already have certain minor limits on my free speech in public.
There's
right?
very, very few limits.
Sure,
Yeah,
right. Very few limits. I understand what those are, and so therefore I'm comfortable knowing that I have the freedom of speech in public. But I know the internet, and I know if a Bill of Rights is put into place on the internet, that it would become a separate entity, that I would not be able to feel free to engage my right to free speech on the internet, because that is, in my opinion, one of the things that is a driving desire for people to have an Internet Bill of Rights, so that people can't say mean shit to me and hurt my feelings. I'm going to boil it down to a real, sophomoric term there, but
well, that's exactly what it is, though. Yeah,
And that's, this is bothersome to me because I don't think the internet should be that. The internet should be what it is as an entity. Now, if you want to govern what people do, if they're breaking laws that already exist via the internet, which is what we do, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's not to say they always do it above board. They put some they do some questionable things just like they do out in the real world.
Oh yeah.
But the bottom line, it's it is what it is. This, like I said, it's a free market, and yes, I believe that government subsidies for any internet company should go away. Like if you want to subsidize the internet providers, that's one thing. Right? Because, they have to put up towers and things like the cellular companies and the cable providers. They have to come through municipalities and lay lines and do things. I get it. Work with the government on that. But what you actually do on the internet, what you can see, oh, goddamn. I don't like the idea of anything being governed on that. And yes, as soon as the government's involved with sites like Facebook, it screws the pooch.
Yeah.
But, can we remove government oversight on the internet from that standpoint? Or do they see it as a slippery slope? If we give up, input from subsidies, does that mean we lose everything that we're able to do on the internet because we're going to start to lose ground on what control we have?
Well, I mean, if they stop taking subsidies, if they're not allowed to get subsidies anymore, then they're going to have to allow more freedom. Otherwise, most of these companies operate at a loss, except for things that they get from like subsidies or advertisers. And so, as soon as you take those subsidies away, well, they're going to have to do something, right, to get more people on there, so to get more eyeballs on the advertisements.
Right.
And so, free speech would be a great way to do that, because if you're just banning people left and right as they are now, you're kind of destroying your user base. You're destroying those eyeballs that are going to be on these advertisements. So, I mean, I think that that's a great way of doing it.
Yeah, Seawall's pointed out that there are antitrust laws to consider. A lot of the
that's
bans
true,
happen. Competitors, people being banned. There's a lot of crossover of people between these companies, investors, and money needs to be looked at. I absolutely agree.
Clients noticed you, Seawall. Don't worry.
It's there, and that's where, and again, it comes to that catch-22, which is why I understand the fence you get on, because it's like the internet is a place I don't want government oversight, but we need to make sure that there's regulations in place to prevent certain things from happening.
Right, we want our cake and eat it too.
It's it keeps telling me that it's not possible it doesn't seem possible that our existing laws can cross over into the internet strongly enough. I don't know. Is it we're not able to enforce them because of the internet? Is it too...
I just think that it's something that, like, I don't think it's become a big enough deal yet to, like, reach the upper echelons of the government for them to even notice it, probably. I mean, I know they've had, like, Zuckerberg has been up before the Judiciary Committee in the past, but they didn't give a fuck. I mean, that was another dog and pony show. They're like, oh, were you being naughty? Like, no. And they're like, okay. That was the entire thing. I mean, it was ridiculous.
Well, I mean, it's, but that's money, right? It all comes down to
money.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because, I think it, whether they downplay it or not, the internet is a much bigger issue than, it is a beast now. It is a behemoth, as it were. I mean, imagine all digital communication stopping globally right now. What kind of turmoil would that throw us into?
Oh, if the internet was gone?
Yeah, if the internet just
that would be
died.
Oh my god. Yeah, there would be riots. But no one would hear about it because everyone's already canceled their cable.
Right? Shit would hit the fan. It would.
Yeah.
So if we've reached that point, then there is no small issue when it comes to
Oh yeah, no, I agree. It's not me
policing or controlling or considering the internet, right? And that's what I say. I mean, I know it's not. Some may look at it and try and downplay it to us, but the reality of it is, life exists around the internet now. Our society here in America, specifically, I know it does, right? And everything we do, you cannot go through your day without interacting with the internet, can you?
No, my entire day is actually spent interacting. While I'm at work, I'm listening to YouTube.
When you're listening to YouTube, the things that you're doing at work rely on the internet to transmit information back and forth. Yep. Everything, right? Shipping and everything. Take the internet out of the picture. We're fucked. That's our infrastructure. Our infrastructure has a very firm foundation of internet in there, right? A very thick layer of internet built in. It's like the rebar of the foundation of our country right now. All the rebar is being replaced with internet rebar.
Right. It's fiber optic cables. Instead of rebar.
This is why whenever I hear things about potential EMP nuclear strikes, someone's testing them or that shit scares me. and not for my safety.
You're like, I can't check Facebook today.
No, the populace around me.
Right.
That's more the fear of it than anything else. Is like how I'm what you have to deal with from the crazies. Because I know what it's like to go through an entire day without once using the internet, because it didn't exist at one point. I remember when it didn't exist.
Me too.
Now there were some freaky days where the landline phone didn't ring.
Yeah.
But outside of that, but it was, I will say that my first experience with the global world was not the internet. It was CB radios. My old man had a big system in the house with a big 30-foot Moonraker antenna on top of the house.
Nice.
The whole 9 yards. So we were talking to people. He had picked up Alaska. He picked up Russia. Like Russian truckers or whatever, things like this, communications
That's
going
crazy.
by CB. But of course, it just depends on when the cloud cover and magnetic fields and everything, you can bounce ship between countries, right?
That's crazy.
I used to think that was the coolest shit ever, and then they rolled out the internet. Thank you, Al Gore.
Al Gore invented the internet.
Al Gore.
You should talk to Midget B about the whole CB radio thing. He likes that.
Yeah, I didn't say I liked it. I'm just saying I remember.
He used to have one in his car, actually.
It's
pretty funny.
It's some nostalgia.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've thought about getting one and playing around with it, but I can't remember what my handle was when I was a kid. So.
I mean, you can just make up a new one. Be like, Drooping Nutsack or something like that.
All right, here's some irony for you. You know what my grandfather's name was? His CB handle was?
No, I have no idea.
Boomer.
And Makes sense.
And they called him Boomer. It had something to do with some lizard. Some lizard called a boomer or something like that, but they called him the Boomer. That was a CB handle. Should I show you my rebar? J. Edgar, man, he's in the.
J. Edgar, after the chat.
Right?
After
he's
wait till after.
He's got some warm in his form.
I'll DM you.
Oh, make sure everything's caught by the headboard cam, please. I want to see this.
Yeah.
This is going to be. I don't know. When does this become a talking point? When does the Internet Bill of Rights become a talking point when we're, for instance, in campaigns? When are we going to start hearing more of a press for this?
I'm not sure if we're going to hear it this election, but maybe on the next one. We need another big event. It's going to happen.
J. Edgar had a CB in his pickup until he was 9 years old.
Till 09, dummy.
I know.
Jesus.
I was just,
No, you weren't.
Aren't those both the same?
You read
thing?
It wrong.
It wasn't.
Maybe.
How old were you in 09? I mean, it's possible he was 9. I mean, I don't know.
No, he's older than me.
Is he? He's not 18. He looks so young.
That's true. He does look good.
All the sexy ones look young. I'm just saying.
Gross.
But you got me off track, Jake, or maybe.
Making you hot under the collar, right? Even though you're not wearing a collar right now.
So what was your answer? When does it become a talking point? You said not this election, but the next one, maybe.
I was saying it's going to take another like major event, like the Alex Jones thing really helped. Kind of bring it into the mainstream. Some more mainstream notice. But I think it's going to take something even bigger, unfortunately, to kind of bring it to the forefront of everyone's minds.
All right, how many people we still got in the audience? I think we should start a pool to figure out.
I didn't bring my water wings though.
It was a wasted effort, John. Fell on deaf ears.
A lot of lizards called him the boomer. Yeah, that's funny.
He wasn't a trucker. That was the thing. He just did it from home. A lot of lizards called him the boomer.
Funny.
He was kind of he would be the kind that would look for lot lizards, I think.
Probably.
His kids were his lot lizards, just as
gross.
Yeah, tell me about it. We should start a pool on when AOC is going to propose an Internet Bill of Rights.
Oh, she's not gonna. She's not gonna propose Bill. I say never.
I say never.
So? No, I don't think so.
She seems like the person who would put forward
we need more regulation.
A snowflake-driven
regulation.
A snowflake-driven Internet Bill of Rights.
Right. No.
Which means that putting it out there.
Which means that we're going to have even more regulation.
I'm not saying it's going to go through. I'm just saying the pool is.
No. What I'm saying is what she's going to do.
You don't think she would put it forward?
No. What she's going to do is say we need more regulation.
Right.
See, even Midget B agrees with me.
Well, if the Bill of Rights, think about it like this: anybody that proposes a Bill of Rights for the internet,
Styx would. See, J. Edgar has it right there. Styx would totally do it. I would love to vote for Styx. I really hope he runs for governor, and then hopefully president. Would love to see President Styx all shirtless with his leather jacket on during the State of the Union. Would be amazing. And J. Edgar, he kind of ran for office for he put his toe in the water and was like, nah, never mind. I don't think he ran seriously.
So, when it's all said and done, an Internet Bill of Rights is not going to be something put together to tell you what your rights are on the internet. It's not going to be like the original Bill of Rights that they wrote for the Constitution. A Bill of Rights any Bill of Rights that would be put forward these days is going to be a user policy. Is basically what it's going to be. It's going to be about enforcing and policing things by telling you what you have the right to do, by laying out all the things you cannot do. This is what a Bill of Rights is going to be. It's not going to. That's why I think AOC would put it forward, because it would be an excellent way for someone to police the internet by putting forward a Bill of Rights.
Right. Yeah. AOC's Bill of Rights would be like you have the right to not be right wing on the internet. If you are caught being right wing, you are taken off immediately and destroyed, and your family will be rounded up and put in camps.
It'll say, for instance, the first right would be freedom of speech as long as it doesn't offend anyone. See? And there in and of itself, it gives you
which means everyone's gone from the internet.
Right. No free speech anymore on the
internet.
No
one gets to use the internet.
You have the right to free speech as long as it doesn't offend anyone.
That's right. No one gets to be on the internet ever.
You're restricted to saying good morning, happy birthday. What
about the people who did? What about the people who don't have birthdays? All the dead people, they don't get birthdays anymore. I'm offended on their behalf now.
Well,
and good morning. What is good about it?
Right.
Huh? What exactly is good about the morning?
But
Fuck you. All right? I don't like the mornings. I don't get up until afternoon anyway. So don't say good morning to me. You know what? You're banned. That's it.
So.
See how easy that is?
As you can see, my new Bill of Rights is perfect for.
Just kick everyone off the internet.
Is basically all you can
At
do
least
is
it would
go
be
on the
equal
internet
then.
and buy stuff and watch videos.
Oh, but don't buy anything offensive. And no, there can't be any offensive videos or offensive products either.
Well, the offensive products. Well, that's you can't step on retailers. You have the.
Yeah, you
Also,
can.
the Second
Absolutely.
Amendment is you have the right to make
The Second
purchases. You have the right to bear purchases from any vendor that you want, free of judgment.
And J. Edgar, no, he took himself out of the race. He did. He wasn't disqualified. He took himself out because he didn't want that to be used against him. The fact that he has donations coming from abroad.
Which is
At least that was my
bad
understanding
mojo.
of it. Yeah, that was my
Bad
understanding of
mojo.
it, was that he took himself out.
Bad mojo, foreign money.
Yeah,
Bad
well,
mojo.
because he had a Patreon at the time, and so like he couldn't really control who was giving him money, and so he was trying to run for governor of Vermont. Yeah,
However,
and what?
he can literally take he can do couldn't he take figures of how much money he's earned lifetime from Patreon and set that money aside, and then any funds he used would no longer be
No.
money he got from Patreon.
It would be used against him the entire time. Nothing he would say would be,
This is how
taken
people
seriously.
get away with it in Washington all the time.
Yeah, but he's one guy living in Vermont, not wearing a shirt. I mean, what chance does he have against people who have been doing this their whole lives?
Well,
I guess he has been wearing shirts recently.
probably pretty fucking good. It seems to be working out for some.
Yeah, he's not a billionaire though.
Well, that's he's the
I'll have to
average
show you
Joe.
Sticks sometimes. I don't think I've shown you Sticks. He's a cool guy. He shoots videos and doesn't afraid of anything.
So yeah, I think AOC will introduce an Internet Bill of Rights, and it's going to be.
I don't think she will.
I think it'll be a.
I think you're alone in that.
I think it'll be a horrendously regulated thing that, like I said, will be more like a user policy or end user license agreement kind of thing. You know, what you're allowed to and not to do, as opposed to rights. But it'll be titled Bill of Rights. You know,
Right. Bill of Negative Rights.
the Bill of Rights means you can do no wrong. Yeah.
Bill of Rights means you can't do anything right.
You just can't do anything, right?
You just can't do anything, yeah. Jesus.
Well,
All right, let's get the fuck out of here, though. It's about time.
Do you think it would get rid of porn? How do we?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Could we put an amendment in there that porn can't be fucked with?
No. Not acceptable. It degrades and humiliates women.
That could be like
at least the good ones do.
That could be like the third commandment: "Thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's porn."
Thou shalt not fuck with thy neighbor's porn.
We'll have the first two will be rights. The third will be a commandment. We'll just kind of mix and match. We'll get a little bit. We'll appease everybody. We'll get everybody involved in this. It'll be like,
well, no, just get everyone pissed off all at once. It'll be fine.
Welcome to America. I mean,
Yeah.
Isn't that what we do? Isn't that our job? We get up in the morning, have a cup of coffee, and pissed off.
Yep.
Do I have enough pissed off in my coffee? All right, John, it was fun talking with you about all this stupidity.
It was fun talking to me. You're right.
Appreciate all you folks out there in the audience. Glad you're showing up. Glad you're popping in. Sorry for John's behavior in the show tonight. I try to keep him contained, but it's just not possible all the time.
No.
But hey, if you
The
like
neck
what
beard
you're...
is too powerful.
The neck beard is the beard. It's
Check that out. Look at that.
I can't look.
Yeah.
I don't even want to see. If you like what you're hearing, hit the like button, and we've got that subscribe button. And John, they've got somewhere else they can go.
Yeah, they can go to Twitter.
That's your cue.
I was reading the chat. They can go to Twitter and see us at the Gin Gap P.
The Gin Gap P. Hey, thanks for coming out and talking with us tonight, folks.
Also, they can join us on Discord. Fuckers, join us on Discord.
Yeah, it took you long enough. How was that pause in there, John?
I'm not used to doing that one yet. I'll get there.
John, work with me here, okay? I'm trying to run a professional show.
Yeah, okay.
Could you tell? What chance does he have against people who've been doing this their whole lives? That's a horrible attitude to have. See?
Yeah, no, it is. It's a very cynical attitude.
That's the same
believe
attitude
it?
they
It's
had
just
about
kind
us.
of, yeah, that's true. Yeah, no, it's just a cynical attitude. It's not something I actually believe. It's just kind of meh. Like,
So I remember
I don't know.
That's what I heard the first time we started trying to do this show. You guys are no Alex Jones, and I'm like, God damn it.
It's true.
All right, we're going to get out of here. You guys have a good night, and thanks for stopping by. We'll see you Monday when we're hanging out and shooting the shit. John, have yourself a good night. Thanks for stopping by.
Yeah.